The system is not designed for you to win. Not by accident, not by mistake. Not because people are lazy, uninformed, or not trying hard enough. It's designed that way, on purpose. Most people spend their entire lives working harder, saving more, trying to do the right thing, and still end up stuck in the same place. They wake up early, they follow the rules, they stay consistent. They do everything they were told would lead to progress. And yet somehow, it never quite works the way they expected. Meanwhile, a smaller group of people seem to move differently. They don't necessarily work harder. They don't necessarily take bigger risks. But they understand something most people don't. They're not fighting the system. They're using it. And once you understand how the system actually works, you start to see something uncomfortable. The rules you were taught were never meant to make you win. They were meant to keep the system stable. They were meant to keep participation high. They were meant to keep everything moving, but not necessarily moving in your favor. And that realization changes everything. Because once you see the system clearly, the question is no longer, why am I not getting ahead? The real question becomes, what game am I actually playing? From the outside, the system looks fair. It looks structured, predictable, logical. Work hard, earn money, save it, invest it, build a better life. That's the formula most people are given. And at first glance, it makes sense. Effort should lead to results. Discipline should lead to progress. Consistency should lead to growth. But here's the problem. That formula was designed for stability, not for advantage. It's a framework that keeps people moving, but it doesn't necessarily help them move ahead. Because the system you're operating in is not neutral. It's not passive. It's not just sitting there waiting for you to succeed. It's structured. It has incentives. It has pressure points. It has mechanisms that push and pull people in specific directions. And most importantly, it moves in cycles. If you follow the system blindly, without understanding how it moves, you're not actually playing the game. You're just participating in it. And participation alone doesn't guarantee progress. Think about what we've already uncovered. Money is not just earned, it's created. And it's created primarily through debt. Central banks influence how much money exists in the system and how expensive it is to access. Interest rates rise and fall. Liquidity expands and contracts. Markets don't just go up. They rise, peak, fall, and reset. And these patterns repeat over and over again. None of this is random, which means something very important. Your outcomes inside this system are not random either. Most people lose not because they're incapable, not because they lack intelligence, not because they didn't try hard enough. They lose because they're playing the wrong way. They're taught to save cash in a system where money is constantly losing value. They're told to avoid risk in a system that rewards calculated risk. They're encouraged to follow the crowd in a system that punishes late participation. So they end up reacting instead of anticipating. They move based on fear, headlines, and emotions instead of understanding. They wait for confirmation. And by the time confirmation arrives, the opportunity is already gone. And at the center of all of this is a fundamental misunderstanding. Most people believe that effort alone is enough. That if they just work harder, stay consistent, and make good decisions, everything will eventually work out. But effort without positioning doesn't win. Because this system doesn't reward effort directly. It rewards alignment. It rewards timing. It rewards leverage. It rewards understanding. And if you don't understand the system, you're always reacting to it, which means you're always one step behind. To understand how to win, you first have to understand what game you're actually in. Because it's not just about working, saving, and investing. That's only the surface. Underneath that, there's a deeper structure. Money is created and expanded. That money flows into assets. Asset prices begin to rise. As prices rise, confidence increases. As confidence increases, participation increases. And as participation increases, the system expands even further. But eventually, something changes. The system tightens. Money becomes more expensive. Liquidity begins to disappear. Pressure starts to build. And when that pressure reaches a certain point, something breaks. Markets fall. Confidence disappears. Assets lose value. And the cycle resets. Then it begins again. This cycle is not a flaw. It's not a mistake. It's part of how the system functions. And here's the key insight that changes everything. Different people exist in different positions within that cycle. Some people are early. They understand what's happening before it becomes obvious. They position themselves before the majority moves. Others are late. They react to what's already happened. They follow trends after they've already played out. They enter when things feel safe and exit when things feel uncertain. And the difference between those two groups determines outcomes. Not intelligence, not effort, position. If you want to win in this system, the first thing you have to change is how you think. You have to stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What is the system doing?" Because once you understand the direction of the system, your decisions become clearer. You're no longer guessing. You're responding to structure. Most people focus on what's directly in front of them. Their job, their income, their expenses. But the people who move differently focus on what's happening underneath. They watch liquidity. They watch cycles. They watch positioning. They're not just working inside the system, they're observing it. And then they adjust. This is the shift that separates participation from strategy. From participant to observer to operator. Most people are playing defense. They're trying to protect what they have, avoid mistakes, stay safe. And on the surface, that seems reasonable. But in a system driven by expansion and contraction, playing only defense limits you. Because while you're protecting, others are positioning. They're acquiring assets early. They're taking advantage of low prices. They're preparing for the next phase of the cycle. And by the time the majority reacts, the move is already over. This is why it feels like the same people keep winning. It's not because they're lucky. It's not because they have secret information. It's because they understand timing and positioning. They understand the cycle. The system moves in phases. Expansion, peak, contraction, reset. Each phase creates different conditions, different opportunities, different risks. If you ignore the cycle, everything feels unpredictable. It feels chaotic. It feels random. But if you understand the cycle, you start to see patterns. And patterns can be recognized. You don't need to predict exact moments. You just need to recognize where you are. When money is cheap, assets tend to rise. When money becomes expensive, pressure builds. When pressure builds long enough, something breaks. And when something breaks, the system resets. This is not random. It's structural. Winning in this system is not about being perfect. It's about positioning. Being early instead of late. Being prepared instead of reactive. Being aware instead of blind. It means paying attention to what's changing, understanding incentives, watching where money flows. Because money always moves first. It moves before the headlines. It moves before the narratives. It leaves clues. And if you learn to follow those clues, you stop chasing outcomes. You start aligning with them. A common mistake is trying to fight the system, trying to reject it, trying to escape it. But the people who actually win don't fight it. They use it. They understand that debt, when used correctly, can be a tool. They understand that cycles create opportunity. They understand that volatility is not just risk, it's movement. And movement creates possibility. They don't see the system as something to escape. They see it as something to navigate, an environment. And like any environment, you either adapt to it or you struggle within it. Understanding the system is one thing, operating within it is another. Because even when you know what's happening, you still have to act correctly. And that's where most people fail. Not in understanding, but in execution. Because execution requires discipline, patience, control. Most people panic during downturns. They sell when prices fall. They chase when prices rise. They hesitate when opportunities appear. They quit when things become uncertain, and those patterns keep them trapped in the same cycle. But the people who move differently stay consistent. They don't react emotionally. They don't chase hype. They don't panic under pressure. They move deliberately. They wait when necessary. They act when it matters. And over time, those small differences compound. Here's the truth most people avoid. The system is not just difficult, it's misunderstood. Most people never take the time to understand how it actually works. They rely on simplified advice, short-term thinking, popular opinions. And in a system this complex, that's not enough. Because surface-level thinking leads to surface-level results. Winning in this system doesn't mean getting everything right. It doesn't mean predicting every move. It doesn't mean avoiding losses. It means understanding where you are, making informed decisions, positioning yourself ahead of major shifts. It means thinking differently, acting differently, seeing differently. It's not about perfection. It's about alignment. You don't escape the system. That's the illusion. You don't step outside of it. You learn how to move within it. Because once you understand how money flows, how cycles repeat, how incentives shape behavior, you stop reacting and you start operating. And that's the difference. Not luck, not talent, not shortcuts, understanding. Everything you've seen in this series, money, debt, central banks, market cycles, leads here. Because once you see the system clearly, the question is no longer why this is happening. The real question is, what are you going to do with that understanding? Because in a system like this, you don't win by playing harder. You win by playing differently.